Hello, welcome everyone. Okay, so I am going to combine for the last two decans of Gemini, Gemini 2 and 3. I'm going to do them all in one video. I have some stuff that I want to focus on, and I want to condense instead of doing this for each of the decans, like Gemini 2 for that decan week, and then Gemini 3 separately. I want to combine them both, and I think this would be a good opportunity for people to see side by side how the Gemini 2 and 3 decans, how they are correlating to each other. For Gemini 2, we are looking at the dates of May 31st, June 1st, to June 9th and 10th, and that's ruled by the Nine of Swords and the planetary decan ruler for this time frame is Mars, so it'd be Mars in Gemini. And then Gemini 3 is going to be ruling our decan. That's going to take us right up to the summer solstice. So that would be June 10th or 11th. This is for our Gemini 3, the 10 of Swords. So third decan of Gemini, June 10th, 11th to June 20th to 21st. Okay, so again, those two numbers, like the 10th, 11th, 20th, 21st, will alternate every few years. So depending on the placement of the sun on its axis will determine the dates, more or less, that work best to start the decans and to end the decans. So for the Gemini 3 decan, it is ruled by the sun. So I have some different comparisons here, as I mentioned, when starting to go through this decan journey again. I want to move away from the Rider-Waite-Smith. Okay, for the most part, many of us have worked with that deck to get introduced to the tarot, and there is nothing wrong at all working with that deck. But for me, I've worked with that deck a long time ago, and I no longer read with it because I felt that it was very basic, and I wanted to explore other decks. So when I'm doing my decan readings, I'm specifically working with decks that will challenge the way that I can do readings, and to move away from what we normally see, the Nine of Swords and 10 of Swords. The Nine of Swords, we always see someone who is, we see an individual who is sitting upright in bed with 9 swords, maybe 5 swords above, 4 below, depending on which deck and how it's positioned, and the person has their eyes covered with their hands in fear, and there's a window scene in the background. That's what we normally see with the Rider-Waite-Smith. And then, of course, the 10 of Swords is the absolute end to a situation. And I will discuss that a little bit more, since we are working with different decks, different systems, different points of view. So to kind of lightly recap, Gemini is an air sign. Its astrological planetary ruler is Mercury. So Gemini, sign-wise, the characteristics of Gemini is communication, social skills, partnership, wanting knowledge, asking questions. Geminis tend to be a little bit more studious. They're very quizzical about things, so the more they ask, they will keep asking questions until they find the right answer. So I relate to Gemini quite a bit because I do have it in my chart, but not heavily. Mercury is that planet that instigates, that influences these characteristics of communicating and interacting with people. We have here thinking, learning, networking. And this is from Lily Ashwell's Heavenly Bodies Astrology deck. It's the deck that I work with when I do any form of astrology tarot reading. Because I like the imagery. It's very light. It's very ethereal. And so it allows me to focus more on the energy of what the images have and how I can intuitively connect to them. So here, again, curiosity, intellect. Those are the skills of Gemini. Okay, so this is the premise for the Gemini decans. We're using these influences of the mind and communicating and interacting with people. Trying to find that one-on-one connection, which we normally see with the lovers, which is the 6th card in the major arcana archetypes. So here, with our 9 and 10 of swords, 9 of swords for the 2nd decan, okay, from May 31st to June 1st to the 10th till the 11th. Okay, I'm going to move this up here. Okay, remember that scene that I was telling you about with the Rider-Waite-Smith? Here, we move away from that persona, the physical being that we see sitting upright. Here, we're focusing on the darkness, what's going on inside. Okay, Mars, moving forward. It is the planet of destruction, which we get here with the Tower. Okay, this is with the Gill Tarot. There are different depictions of the Tower. But here with the Tower overall is sudden changes. It's also associated with the planet Uranus sometimes because of the sudden shift of energy. I can relate Uranus to this in that aspect. It's the breaking down. It's the releasing of old ways of thinking, letting go of things, removing things that are no longer of service to us. Mars causes this action. Okay, so here, I'm going to put this down here. Okay, we got the key word here of despair. Okay, so I want you to look at this scene here. Now, what's interesting here is we have, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 swords here, and the 9th sword, I'm going to move this closer, is getting hit. It's getting struck with a ray of light. Now, this is a night scene. I'm relating this to the full moon. I'm looking at this as a form of inner reflection and using the energy of the moon, even though we're talking about Mars and Gemini influence for this, but we can still use that energy of the moon, this being the full moon, for releasing all of this energy. Okay, the full moon is usually a culmination of energy that has been, or directions, goals that we've been working from or working to, that shows what we've completed, what we've gone through. So I'm using this influence here of this scene with this light beam coming here on the 10th sword, showing that we have this possibility. We have this direction that we could change the fear that we may be feeling inside, the unknown, feeling that we are surrounded by our own self-imposed thoughts, our self-imposed fear. Okay, and if we just look up and see, literally see the light, see that there is something up ahead that can change this. But that is entirely up to you. And that's where I feel the Mars and Gemini influence comes in, because it could break down. It's a fiery energy, fire and air, which is ruled by Gemini, the element. They work together. So we can use this momentum of Mars, of just like moving forward directly and just going, you know, I don't want this anymore. I want to move away from this. This that kind of reinforcement, we're starting to shed light, and we're starting to find that self-belief that we can move away from this. And in doing so, this is where we get this activity here. We're letting go of this. This we're doing ourselves. We're moving away from this. Okay? So what I'm saying here with this Mars energy, this fiery energy, we're using that movement of the mind of stirring all of this and any negative energy, any negative situation that you're in, and we're turning it around because we're seeing this potential that is ahead of us. Okay, so even though the Mars in Gemini can read as, you know, it's destructive, it's heavy, I feel in any situation, because I see the neutral in all the cards, I see the good and the bad, and I see what can be done to either move away from it and move forward, or what isn't being done and where you just end up being stuck and choosing that direction. Okay, so that's where we have the Tower coming in. We're making this choice. We want to release this. Okay, it's mind over matter. Here's another example of with the Asherah Tarot. This is our Nine of Swords. And considering the coloring in here, we see the bloodshed. You know, we see the 9 swords are pointing inward. I don't know if you could see here, because this is the smaller version of this deck. All the signs are pointing inward, right to the eye. Okay. And look here, the butterfly. It's being severed. The butterfly's transformation. We are allowing this kind of way of thinking, this movement of the mind, that it is being self-destructive. Okay, and again, I want to emphasize that this is a choice. We have a choice to move with this kind of energy or away from it. Okay, we all know what happens in that 10 of Swords, but we're going to see something different with the decks that I'm working with, and that's why I'm pulling the decks that you've been seeing in the recent videos for this Decan walk with me, because they give a different perspective. Okay, so here's another aspect. This is Attila's Unified Esoteric Tarot. Now he has a different planetary placement for this. Okay, I'm not going to go and explain this because I want to stick to the Golden Dawn system. But here we have Venus in Gemini. Okay, Venus is of comfort, of money, how we take care of ourselves, how we take care of others, and this also includes the mind. Okay, so Venus in Gemini. Okay, this is for the Nine of Swords. He uses the keyword exchange of information. Okay, and then the reverse of this is contradicting ideas. So let's just focus on this here for the Nine of Swords. Okay, so exchange of information is getting details, getting insight, getting something that can further ourselves, and getting details that we need in fulfilling a goal, whether it's a goal of change for ourselves, or a project that we're working with, or if it's coming to a relationship. This here, the exchange of information and the Venus and Gemini placement, I'm reading this as a direction of moving forward. Okay, Venus is related to the Empress. Okay, and the Empress is all of growth. It's of nurturing. So this information, exchange of information that we're getting here with this influence of Venus and Gemini, is about gathering these thoughts, communicating with people that will make us move forward, would allow us to move in the direction that we need to. And we're utilizing the information that we're getting is going to further increase our understanding about what's going on. Okay, so that's just a light take for me with a different planetary placement for the second decan in Gemini. So I just wanted to just briefly talk about that, just to show the difference with decks and their explanation of the suits in relation to the decans. Okay, so see this card as gaining information that will further allow us to grow, to get more knowledge and grow the intellect, expand the mind in a way that we can share this information with other people so that they can benefit from it as well. Okay, so let's go to our Ten of Swords. Okay, so I'm going to move this here. Now the Ten of Swords here, specifically with the Asherah, which I'll show you in a moment, is changing the energy. Okay, because here in this third decan of Gemini, which takes us from June 10th, 11th to June 20th to 21st, like I said, with those Ten of Swords, we're seeing an ending. We're seeing something that has just been overwhelming us finally coming to an end. And now it's time to make the next step. Here with the Gill Tarot, this Gemini third decan is now ruled, we go from Mars, that activity of breaking down, moving away from this situation, self-perpetuating what's going on inside. And if we do the right actions, if we move forward in that way of, you know, letting go and growing, we move into the expansive energy of the sun. This is the third decan of Gemini, is Sun in Gemini. And so we're seeing the vitality, we're seeing the transformation that has taken place, or that is starting to take place once we've gone from this Nine of Swords. Okay, but let me back up here. Okay, so desolation. Now, with the Ten of Swords here, this is, I think for the most part, out of all the minor arcana cards, this is like the lowest that you can go. This is where mentally you're spent. You've exhausted all means of trying to understand a situation, and it's just become very frustrating. And when you cannot move ahead mentally, things shut down, things get blocked, and then what happens? Nothing moves. Nothing grows, everything stays still. As you can see in this wheel, it's brittle, it's frail. We have the background of a city that looks like it's blacked out, but we also have the sun either rising or setting. And so for me, with this Ten of Swords, we're seeing the direction that we will ultimately be taking. Do we choose to stay here in this scene? We want to move forward. Okay, we have fractures in this wheel, and it's being held by all 10 swords. Remember, the swords is the mind, the intellect, but it's a fragile state that the mind is in. This is almost like your last recourse. What can you do with what little you have? What hasn't been moving forward? What are you going to do? This is where the sun comes in. Okay. When you're down to the lowest and you can't go any further, what are you going to do? You're going to have to make a change. You're going to have to move forward. You're going to have to look up. The 8, 9, and 10 of Swords is a card that really puts the head down, because those are very heavy cards. Most of the sword suits are, depending on the deck. Okay, but what it implies a heaviness of the mind, a heaviness that we've placed upon ourselves. When we've gone that low, we need to make those changes. So the Sun is of transformation. Okay. It's what we've learned. This is where we go with the 10 of Swords. This is where we go from here. It's very similar to the 5 of Pentacles. You know, things are broken financially. Resources are all spent. You only have what's on your back. What remains? If you have no resources left, nothing tactile, what remains? It's your will. It's your will to move forward. So this is what we're seeing here. We're seeing how you could take a harsh situation, okay? Look at the energy here and transform it. These are both fiery energies. Naturally, the Sun and Mars. The Sun is ruled by Leo, so there is that life force. There is this will, this energy to move forward. We don't want to go back to this. We don't want to go back to the 9 of Swords. The 10 is as far as we can go. Broken. Fragile. What changes are we going to make? We need to, it's like we've had enough. We need to move forward. Okay, and I want to show you this here. This is the 10 of Swords here. And we see the transformation going on. Okay, in this case, they're being represented by a bat. If this will focus. Let me move here. Okay, so we have the bat. The bat deals with the underworld. This is our deepest psyche. And here we have the elements of the tree of life, the different planetary placements. But here, look what we have. We have the dove. This is the healing. This is like the death of what's been going on, right? The death, the ending, and moving on to something new. It's a beautiful representation. Okay, I'm going to flip this around so you can see the reverse of it. So this is what's hidden. Okay, and this is also coming to the terms of seeing and understanding and facing what we fear, and saying, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to be in this relationship. I don't want to be in this environment anymore. Move on. Move ahead. And so when we see cards like this that tend to be tragic, 3 of Swords is another one. Okay, it's how we work with those actions, with those energies at that time. Okay. Here with the 10 of Swords, the communication that's going on with the 10 of Swords is that the heart and the mind actually connecting. Okay, because the Sun is ruled by Leo, which rules the organ of the heart, of the upper back. Very sensitive. Okay, so I feel here with the 10 of Swords, it's the mind being broken, but also the heart feeling that we can't do this anymore. And that's where this energy of the Sun comes in, and it goes, we have that future. We have that potential, just like this moonlight here. Okay. And here, with Attila's deck, he has a different planet placement because Attila works with all 10 planets. Okay, the Golden Dawn system, which the Decan minor arcana is based around is just based on the 7 planets, because Uranus, Neptune, Pluto weren't discovered when the system was created. So Attila created this deck, the Unified Esoteric Tarot, and spent decades trying to figure out the best way to place all 10 planets in the Decan sequence. And here he uses Uranus. Remember I was saying about Uranus when it came to like sudden changes specifically relating to Mars. And it is, the tower is ruled by Mars, and I did make mention that sometimes Uranus can be an influence for this breakdown. But Uranus deals with sudden shifts. Okay, and here he places Uranus in Gemini. He uses the key word of versatility. And I think that's good because Uranus is an air sign. Uranus is associated with the Fool. And so the Fool is that free spirit, open to anything, you know. That is the free spirit, hence we have the key word of versatility. So with this Uranus and Gemini placement for the Ten of Swords, we're seeing more of just an openness. Okay, we've gone through this Ten of Swords experience. So where can we take this energy? Okay, we want to take this energy in a completely different way. We want to do something that is quite the opposite. We want to explore and see what other options there are to move away from this. Okay, to move away from these 2 decans that are very heavy, but also culminating at the same time to, you know, bring that awareness to the mind and to the heart to go, you know what, let's do this. And Gemini's characteristics can do this. Also, Gemini, we see the twins. Okay, Gemini can sometimes be a little teeter-tottery when it comes to you know, making commitments and you know, staying online with things. Because the reason why is that they want to see, it's almost similar to Libra, but Gemini really wants to, again, get as much information as possible, explore different things. Gemini is mutable. So we have this energy of the swords in Gemini, 8, 9, and 10. 8, 9, and 10 are the mutable aspects for the Decan. So 8, 9, 10 of swords would be for Gemini. What are the other mutable signs? Sagittarius, 8, 9, 10 of fire would represent them. 8, 9, 10 for, let me think, the other mutable earth sign, for Virgo. Okay, so these are some of the signs when it comes to the placement of the decans of 8, 9, and 10. They are wrapping up that energy. But that mutability, that adaptability is very important for those signs. Gemini is mutable. So there needs to be some flexibility to move through this particular series of cards, 8, 9, and 10, so that you can move forward. Okay, sometimes we have to go to that dark place. We have to challenge ourselves. We have to put ourselves in challenge situations so that we can move forward. That's what I titled the first Gemini 1 Decan episode I did, The Challenged Intellect. Okay, and that's where it begins with Gemini for this Decan. And then here is how are we going to be dealing with this energy. Okay, we need to make a choice. I can maybe say the 9 of Swords is the choiced intellect, or intellect of choice. And then here, the 10 of Swords, I can call this one, I can't even think of a name right now to call this one. The connection of the mind. Yeah, the connected intellect. because once you've reached that understanding of the heart and the mind, you're being able to make a sound choice. Here we're relying solely on, the challenged intellect, how we deal with the situation. We need to move from this. Here's the connectedness of the heart and the mind, moving away from this, but being flexible with what has yet to come. Okay, so that's the Decan readings for Gemini 2 and 3. 9 of Swords for Gemini 2, which is May 31st, June 1st to the 10th, 11th of June. And then here, Gemini 3, our 10 of Swords. It's Sun and Gemini for the 3rd decan. Mars and Gemini for the 2nd decan. Okay. And again, I think this is a wonderful representation of the 10. Letting go of the unseen, coming to terms with it, coming to terms with the fear, our deepest psyche, and moving from it, moving forward. Alrighty, so we have summer solstice coming up in a few weeks. I will have a special video to discuss that. And I will still play with the decans. I'm going to see how long I will go with this. Maybe I'll do another month where I'll cover all 3 decans, or maybe I'll just do one or two decans. Maybe I'll skip a month. I'm just going with the flow of this practice here, and I've been enjoying it the more that I'm reading about astrology, the planets, the signs, the houses, as hopefully you've seen my previous video of where I want to take this practice of bringing astrology into the tarot. So again, these are different perspectives. Okay, we have Attila's deck where he's bringing in all 10 planets, so the placement of the planets with the decans are going to be different. I think this is the first deck that I've seen that has actually incorporated that. So this is a very precious deck. And then, of course, we have the Golden Dawn system where they work with the 7 traditional planets and placing them in the decan order that they have set. Any questions that you have regarding the decan series or just the decans, feel free to ask. You can leave comments below. I have my website. You can catch me on Instagram. Feel free to subscribe, let people know about this channel if you feel that it's something that they can gain from it. I have mentioned about potentially doing a decan course where I will be discussing the planets, the signs, in more detail in relation to the minor arcana. So if you are interested in that, let me know. You can email me, and again, leave comments below. I want to see if people would be interested enough for me to do and create such a course, because I think this is a really wonderful way to see and explore the the tarot in a different manner. Okay, you have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful Gemini 2, Mars and Gemini decan week, and also the last week of Gemini. So just take the 9 and 10 decans. Just be mindful of this, but know that we cannot be stuck in that situation for long. We need to move forward. We need to see the light. We need to see the potential of what lies ahead. Alrighty. Okay. Have a wonderful week, everyone. I will see you all again soon.